Here is a brand positioning strategy to help you attract way more of your ideal clients. And not just that, but help you to increase the amount of inbound leads that you're getting, calls that you're booking, and sales that you are generating on a consistent basis. This is the exact same strategy that I've used to generate now over $1 million in sales from a very small audience, and the exact same strategy that I've given to many coaches, whether they're just starting off their business, they're in like the mid-level range where they're doing like 30 to 50K per month, or even 7 and 8 figure businesses that I've worked with, like Critical Bench and a couple others. Why is this important? Why is brand strategy important? Well, first and foremost, it's going to increase the results that you get on any content, any marketing, anything that you're actually putting out there, whether it's organic content, paid advertising, you're doing podcasts, videos like this on YouTube. Anytime you are communicating your message to your audience, when you have your brand positioning strategy dialed in, it's going to make everything else work better. Right now, there are over 300,000 social media posts, and this is across all platforms, being published every single day at this time. And I'm sure it's just going to keep growing and growing and growing as more and more creators and people are coming on the internet. And so in order to stand out, you have to be able to take a little bit of a different approach and go a little bit deeper than a lot of your competitors. And the good news is most of your competitors aren't going to go this deep. Most people are kind of lazy and they want to do just like the bare minimum, and they end up fighting in this like Red Sea. There's a book I read years ago. This is actually what turned me on to brand positioning and stuff, almost 10 years ago now. And it was called The Blue Ocean Effect, I think it was. And they talked about most businesses compete in a bloody ocean, right? And they were referring to there's so much competition. People are like dropping prices. Everybody's trying to offer these crazy guarantees, and they're just adding all these bells and whistles, and everybody's doing the same thing. And then there's like a few that stand apart, right? And one of the brands that really resonated with me at the time was Curves Fitness, which we all know Curves is out of business, I think. Maybe they're still in business, I don't know. But at the time, it was like all the big gyms, right? There was like the Globo gyms type stuff, the big box gyms. And there was a huge gap in the market, and everybody was trying to compete in this bloody water, just opening up Golds, LA Fitnesses, Bally's, all these big gyms. And Curves was like, let me create a gym for women. And they created like a circuit style workout for them. I think it was like 45 minutes or something, 30 minutes, maybe like that, something like that. And it took off. And it was one of the pioneers into the boutique fitness space. And then you started seeing other brands starting to model, like 9 Rounds started to model them, which is like a kickboxing type fitness gym. Then you had gyms like Orange Theory pop up, right? And now it's still happening, still innovating. You can also look at things like the Circus and Circus Olay, right? You got like the standard circus that was around for a while, and then you had Circus Olay come in and use the same principles, but apply a completely different approach to it. And so brand strategy can make or break the difference of your business success, and it definitely has for mine, for sure. I'm going to walk you through the strategy here in just a moment, and there's about 7 steps to it, right? There's 7 major, there's more than 7, but there's like 7 major pillars that if you have in place, you will be able to definitely attract a way more inbound leads, calls, revenue than any of your competitors, hands down. And I know this from my own experience. And so a lot of this process I learned when we were franchising our gym. We were at a point where, we are crushing it in South Florida in our local market using the strategy I'm about to give you. I've definitely got way better at it than I did back then. I wish I can go back in time sometimes and be like, but of course that was like part of the learning process. But like knowing what I know now, dude, my gym would have freaking been would have exploded. But we had to go through this franchising process, and we had to really come up with a unique difference so we can compete in the franchise market. We went through a big, I would say, we prematurely franchised our gym. We could have succeeded if we stuck at it, but it ended up not being the right thing. It wasn't the right fit. That's a story for another day. And then I took these same principles and I applied it to my online fitness business. And we grew to multiple 6 figures in just under 6 months. I think we generated, it was like $275,000 in cash in just under 12 months from the strategy. And it was like taking the same approach, like instead of just talking about fat loss, and again, I'm going to give you some examples in a moment, but instead of talking about fat loss or like just the standard stuff, we like went really deep into the brand strategy and it positioned us differently, right? And then the same thing I'm doing now, right? It's like I am not competing in like the big business coaching space. I have created a unique difference to our marketing, to our brand now. And again, I'm going to walk you through all these things so you can kind of emulate for your own business and for your own brand right now. What we want to avoid right now, and this is what I fell victim to for a while, especially back around 2019, 2020, is most coaches, most business owners, they post content that might get some likes. Sometimes they get a few likes, sometimes they get hundreds of likes, but it doesn't take their audience anywhere near the DMs or anywhere near their offer. This is what I call the post and pray method. Things that might have worked back in 2018, 2017, maybe even 2019, 2020, they're not working as well right now or at all. And when you just post and pray, you fall into what is called the content commodity trap, where all businesses are trying to educate their audience. They're trying to teach at their audience, right? Maybe they're trying to share vulnerable posts or share like here's my life, but everybody's doing that same stuff. You know what I'm saying? Everybody's teaching how-to content. Everybody's teaching information, especially if you're in like the health or fitness space. As an easy example is people are like, here's workouts, here's nutrition, here's mindset. It's all the same stuff. And so you fall into this content commodity trap. You're not different than any of your competitors. And lo and behold, if you're trying to run ads, dude, like that, it's such a competitive market right now, right? And so the secret here when it comes to brand strategy is the communication behind the content. Twofold. What brand positioning is, what brand strategy is A, it's how your audience, your market, perceives your brand. Does that make sense? It's how they see it, your brand in their eyes. That's the first part. The second part is how you communicate your marketing message to the market. So it's like the words that you use does your marketing message connect with your audience on a deep level, not just a head level, but on a heart level to where they actually deeply connect to you in your brand? Does it captivate them? Does it keep their attention? Does it keep them wanting to consume your content? And then does it convert them, right? And this is what we're going to talk about today. Like, are you actually presenting them the beliefs they need to believe? Are you helping to dismantle any objections that they have? Are you discrediting certain mistakes or misconceptions that they're currently making right now or believing right now, right? This is all part of conversion, right? And I'm going to show you how to do this. And so I want you to think about this, and we're going to dive into these 7 steps. Your marketing message, your messaging, like how you communicate your brand and your offer and everything that you do within your content or any marketing that you're putting out there, it is the 5% that produces 95% of your results. And in this case, we're talking about inbound leads. We're talking about calls booked. We're talking about landing page views. We're talking about conversions, right? Sales. The best analogy I could put, I come from the fitness space. If somebody was coming to me for weight loss back in the day, and they wanted to, lose 30 pounds, let's say. Like, the first thing that I would do is help them dial in their calories. I would help them make sure they're eating at least in a ballpark range of calories they should eat. Because if somebody's eating, say, 300 calories, that's like starvation. Or if they're eating 3,000 calories, that's perhaps too much. So it doesn't matter what food they eat, they're not going to get the results that they're hoping for, right? Same thing is true when it comes to content and marketing. It doesn't matter how good the information is or the content is. If the messaging isn't dialed in, if the brand strategy isn't dialed in, it's going to fall flat. You're not going to get the results that you're hoping for. And so the first thing that we got to do, and this is what I do with all of my in-demand coach students, my one-to-one clients, is I help them with their brand positioning. Because when you dialed in it, just like when you dial in calories to a meal plan, all of a sudden results start to happen. Does this make sense? So this is the importance here. All right. So hopefully I sold you on the importance of this. So let's go ahead and dive into the strategy. And yes, I'm going to share my screen. And yes, you can have what I'm going to be sharing with you today. I am more than happy to give this over to you. And so this is a framework that I call the Hero Message Framework. And so where we're going to start here is with the struggle bus, right? We're going to start with struggle bus. And let me just zoom in a little bit more on this. All right, so we have your struggling avatar. Let's like look over here right now. There's going to be 4 things that we're going to want to jot down. And I'm going to encourage you to actually do this work. 4 things that you're going to want to jot down. The first thing is going to be the specific pains that you're in. And y'all, if you've been in business for any length of time, you should already have this dialed in. But if you don't, this is a place to start. We're going to go way deeper here in just a second. This is a good place to start. What are the specific pains that your current avatar is in? Like, I'm talking the present moment symptoms, right? Like, for me, I know that I'm helping people, what we help people with is build a profitable online coaching business. And so I know the pains that my avatar is going through, present moment symptoms, is they're having inconsistent revenue months. Like, sometimes they're signing up clients, sometimes they're not. Sometimes their content's hitting, sometimes it's not. And I know that right now they're stressing out over man, is next month going to be as good as the last month? Or are we going to hit another ebb? And so I know some of these pains. So what are these present moment symptoms? What are these pains? List at least 3, right? The second thing is, what are the actions that they're taking to solve those pains? In weight loss, I know when I was helping people lose belly fat, that the things they were doing were they were restrictive eating. They were eating 300 calories and they were running every single day, and they were lifting too light of weights. What are the actions that they're currently taking to try to solve those pains? Get as specific as possible. Specificity is your friend here, right? We want to be talking, and might I say, let me back up for a minute. If you're under 50K per month in your business right now on a regular basis, you should be speaking to one avatar. People are trying to create their brand positioning in their marketing message for 4 or 5 different avatars. They're trying to create it for a whole niche. If you're trying to create it for a whole niche, it's going to be really challenging to actually get traction. So create this for one actual human being, a real human. Don't make up some shit like Fran or Stuart. No, actually pick a real human in real life and create this marketing message and this brand strategy for them. It's going to give you so much better results. So what are the actions that person's taking to try to solve that pain? And then what are the beliefs they have, right? What are the specific, and I'm going to say the word specific, not Pacific like the ocean, specific, getting really clear and dialed in on a number. What are the beliefs they have? So say weight loss, they're trying to get rid of stubborn belly fat. They feel disgusting, right? They're tired of being so disgusting looking and feeling. And so they're restrictive eating. They're eating 300 calories on Atkins or some shit like that. And what are the beliefs they have to why they can't get the results? Maybe they believe that it's their genetics, or they're too old, or it's too late, or they're not doing enough cardio, or they're not whatever. What are the beliefs, specific beliefs that human is thinking right now? List at least 3. And then what are the consequences? If they don't fix this problem, what are the real life consequences? Maybe their hormones take a dip, right? If it's me, maybe for my avatar, maybe they go out of business and they have to get a full-time job, right? That sucks. That's scarier than anything I've ever heard, right? What are the consequences? Does that make sense? And so once you're clear there, the next thing we want to do, which is really easy, is we want to flip it. What does the transformation look like? So let's look over here. What is that transformation, right? What's the desired result? For my audience, they want to build businesses where they're generating 20 to 50K per month in cash collected and profit. They want to actually have businesses that are producing well for them, and they want to be able to, the feelings are peace, security, confidence, they're making a difference, right? They're able to provide for their family. They're helping other human beings succeed in life, right? That's the feelings that my people want. And I can get really specific with it. And what's the ripple effect? What's now possible for your avatar once they achieve this result? Again, this is kind of basic, but we want to go super deep here. Most people are super surface level, right? So this is the first key. And by the way, if you're hanging with me today, we're about to do something super advanced here in a moment that I typically don't do as free content because it can be super nuanced. But I'm going to take a risk today with the hope of really helping you take your brand to the next level in 2024. Right? So we're going to do something pretty friggin' advanced that I usually only do with my one-to-one clients. All right, so once you're clear on the transformation and once you're clear on these 2 things, now we're going to start going a little deeper. I want you to understand something. There are 4 main beliefs that that you have to sell within your audience. You can write these down. The first is going to be a new belief. You have to sell a new belief to somebody. So if somebody believes their genetics are the reason they can't lose weight, or that they have to diet to lose weight, you have to sell them a new belief. Does that make sense? Right? In my fitness business, the thing that sold us the most was I sold them the belief that it's not about eating healthy, it's about eating right. Right? And the cool thing is, the new belief that you're selling is your truth. If you're trying to sell a lie, you're not going to last long in this business, right? So it's your truth. What I'm selling now in this business is that you have to have your brand strategy and your messaging dialed in. Otherwise, all of your content's going to fall flat. All your marketing's going to fall flat, right? I'm also selling that if you're just posting and praying, doing random posts, it's going to fall flat. You're going to have to build out content sequences. You have to put together a content system. And these are my truths. And so you got to think about what that is for you. And so with that being said, what is that new belief? What is the new belief that you can sell in your audience right now? You know, think about that. What is the belief that, like, if people believed, they would automatically be curious and interested and ask for more? I used to have people all the time that would be like, Jason, how do I eat right? Tell me, like, how do I dial in my calories? Like, what do I do? People ask me all the time, Jason, can you help me with my brand strategy? I'm not really, And so it's like, when people can believe your belief, which your belief is why you are where you are and teaching what you're teaching, then all of a sudden it's the next step to transformation for them. The second sale we have to make is identity. What is the identity of these people up here? For me, it's to become an in-demand coach. When you're in demand in your market, it doesn't matter if you have an audience, a small audience, a big audience, you're going to be really profitable. So I'm teaching people how to step from struggling coach and entrepreneur to in-demand coach and entrepreneur. Does that make sense? So the identity. The third is your unique solution, right? What is that unique solution? Okay. What are you uniquely providing to people? Okay. And the easiest way to come up with this is thinking about the actual vehicle or vehicles, right? So for example, in my online fitness business, I called it the stubborn fat solution. That was my unique mechanism. And underneath that, I had what was called metabolic resistance training, right? Metabolic resistance training was my way of my method on strength training. I just had a unique angle to it. I also had flex fuel nutrition. That was my method on flexible eating, but proper nutrition to be able to lose fat. And then I also had some stress management and mindset type stuff as well that I had unique name for. Nowadays, I call it mind fuel, right? It's like do I call it well, I can't remember what I used to call it right now. I'm like drawing a blank because I changed the name so many times on it. But it was like inner sizes. I think that's what it was. Inner sizes is what I called it back then. Where you're doing like kind of inner work, but like exercise, you get it, pun intended, right? But you want to come up with that unique solution and it has to make sense. Like you don't want to call it like the Jason method. Yeah, that's stupid. Nobody's like, you know what I'm saying? It should sound like a thing. Like intermittent fasting is a thing, right? Keto is a thing, content. Like my method now is called, we have the in-demand coach model, which is comprised of our systems and stuff like that. And then I have like conversion content system. I have content sequences. I have hero messaging. It doesn't sound made up, but I made it up, right? It sounds like a real thing. And that's just me taking my unique spin on like a fundamental principle. Does that make sense? So once you have this dialed in, again, we're not going to have time to go into all of this stuff today because I want to save some time. But the last thing here that I'm going to cover, and then we'll move on to the advanced piece and wrap this up, is you want to have a villain, right? I'm really big into like the Marvel and DC and like I love story and movie. And when you can attach a villain into your brand, what ends up happening is you create an antagonist, a storyline to the actual full brand. And this starts to perceive you, or it gets your audience to perceive you as their guide, right? And I know Donald Miller talks about this in Story Brand, which is a really good book. And he talks about like most brands are trying to be the Luke Skywalker. Instead, you got to be the Yoda. You got to be the Yoda to the Luke Skywalker. When you're the Yoda, you're the guide, right? And so when you can present that there's a villain, that they're the heroes, and that like this is what they have to believe. Like Yoda tried to get Luke to believe like in the Force, and so you got to get your audience to believe this thing. Gotham is an amazing city, some might say, right? But a lot of people are like, that's a terrible city. Well, is it? Or is it the villains that make it? And so what I'm trying to say here for you is that, like, if you tell your audience, like, hey, you suck, you're making mistakes, humans are going to naturally be defensive over that, right? And so, but when we can say, for example, like, no, you're stuck in the content commodity trap, all of a sudden it helps ease it a little bit, because you're like, oh shit, yeah. Versus me being like, hey, you just suck at posting content. You suck at communication. You'd be like, bro, like, chill out. You know what I'm saying? Like, chill, yo. I'm trying to tell you, like, right? Content commodity trap makes it a little bit lighter, being like, you're making a mistake, but you're in this trap, right? You're in the restrictive dieting trap versus like you're eating like an asshole. You see what I'm saying? It's like much different. And so the villain creates a story, an antagonist to the story of your brand, and it massively helps, in my experience, when it comes to client acquisition. And the last thing I want to stay on here before we wrap this up. So make sure you go through and you jot those down, right? You jot all the things that the struggle bus, your struggling avatar identity, the current pains, present moment symptoms, actions, their beliefs to why they can't get results, the consequences, and get as specific as possible with all this stuff, right? Go through the transformation, the very specific transformation. Think about the deep core aspirations. Don't just say lose 30 pounds. Like, come on, yo. Like, that's so vanilla, right? Get like way more specific to your avatar. The internal feelings. What are those what's the current emotional reality? I'm stressed out because I can't freaking, get consistent clients or revenue coming in. Versus like, do you want to have like more revenue each month than when you started the previous month, right? It's a much different emotional reality. Like, really get deep on that. Come up with your unique solution. There's a bit more to coming up with a good unique solution. It's a video for another day. I could probably do a whole video on that. Then have the new belief that you got to get your audience to believe, and then the villain. And then I do have some persuasion frameworks within the in-demand coach and what I teach to my students on how to actually like persuade and influence and do the whole content. We'll save that video for another day because, again, it's a topic in its own. The last thing I want to say on this is when you create the brand perception, we want to think about this. What do you stand for? What do you stand for, right? When you are creating a brand, it's not just about the problems and the aspirations and things like that. It's also about the values that you have. It's the values that you have. And so I want you to think about, what is it that you stand for? What do you stand against? What do you stand against? This is a training that I did with my students a while back. And so it's like, what do you stand for? What do you stand against? What is it? Let me come down to this one, right? So who's in? I want you to think about who's in and who's out. Who is like, this is not for you? And who is it like, this is for you? Like, for me, if you're a fluffuencer and you just care about like making money on your audience, but you don't care about actually helping them and transforming them, you're not for us. Like, that's not what we're about. It's not our mission. We're about transformation and profit. We want to make a lot of money and help a lot of freaking people. That's who's in for us. So what do you stand for? What do you stand against? What do you believe in? What are your values? What is the look? This is getting a little bit too deep in there, right? But like, what is your signature style? What is your language of your brand? Like, I use words like conversion content sequences and content campaigns and things like that. Like, what are your languages? What is like your code? Your code words inside your brand. Like, Gary Vee has jab, 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 hook, right? Like, do you have that? This is all what goes into brand strategy. Again, it's perception. So what I really want you to take away from this right now is, what are those core values that you want to instill? What are the who's in versus who's out? The what do you stand for? What do you stand against? Get that stuff down and start to share it within your content. Does that make sense? So this is a very, I tried to do the impossible today. This is normally like a 2-hour workshop at minimum for me to be able to help people with this. So I try to do the impossible and get this in under 30 minutes today, hoping that this has been super helpful for you, like it has for me. Again, this brand positioning strategy, it goes deeper than this. Like, literally, it takes me usually 2 coaching sessions, 1-to-1 coaching sessions with my clients to help them dial this in. Maybe even more sometimes. And so if you're feeling a little overwhelmed or you're feeling a little confused on this, just know that like that's normal. This goes way deeper than most of us have ever been taught. And so take time with this. When you're learning something new, it is overwhelming. If you have questions, ask me down below or shoot me a message on Facebook or Instagram and I'm happy to help. But just to wrap this up, you like get more specific than your avatar, create the unique differentiation between you and your competitors, okay? The new belief is the most important thing that you can possibly dial in, right? And then speak to the identity, right? The actual current emotional reality and the future emotional reality people want to step into. Start to speak to a villain versus the mistake itself. Does that make sense? And then start to include things like who's in, who's out, what do you stand for, what do you stand against, really infusing your values within your marketing. And it's going to give the perception of your brand a nice uplift. And then the more specific and tangible you can get with the words that you use, when you do this effectively, you will, on a deeper level, connect with your audience, you will captivate their attention, and you will, especially when you're selling the belief in the identity and the solution in your marketing, you will be able to massively increase the amount of inbound leads, calls, and conversions that you make from any of your content or marketing. All right, my friends, any questions, let me know down below. But remember this, your message matters now more than it ever has before. So don't be afraid to speak it. Be seen, be heard, and be impactful.